Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another Walking Dead video from the Thrifty Typewriter. And the topic for today's video is the wasted potential of Carl Grimes. And there was a lot of wasted potential with him, unfortunately. Killing him off, I believe, was a very big mistake. I don't think they should have done that. Carl was pretty important throughout the show and the rest of the comics. Plus, could have done a cool spin-off with him. Just imagine The Walking Dead ends, they do a new show, The Future of The Walking Dead or something like that, just throwing a name out there. Takes place 30 years or so after the end of The Walking Dead. So unfortunately, Rick's died and Michonne's died. All those characters have, died or very old or something like that, we'll just say. And now it is up to Carl, Judith, RJ, Gracie, whatever other kids there are, to now lead the show. So just imagine like a Carl in like his early 30s or something like that. That'd be a very cool show. And now they have to deal with all the problems that, what was it, Major General Beale was saying to Rick. What was it he was saying? Like food was running out, or something like that, or the food that there is now can't sustain like the population or something. I don't remember what he said, but the kids and stuff dealing with all those problems, like, hey, we really need to handle the food situation here. I think that would have been a very cool show to see, not gonna lie. But yeah, I think killing him off was still a big mistake, because who knows, maybe or maybe not, Andrew Lincoln would not have left the show. We don't know behind the scenes. Like behind the scenes, was he still planning on taking a break and leaving the show to go spend time with his family and stuff like that originally, but maybe at a later time. But then when they killed Carl off, it was like, all right, that was a bad call. That was too much. That didn't make sense. Now I'm taking a break. Maybe he would have taken a break later. We don't know. But yeah, who knows? Maybe something like that, happened, and that just sped up his leaving the show and taking a break. Like I said, we don't know, because he's been on the show for what, nine seasons. So that's what, 9-10-ish years, which is a pretty long time. Look at most shows now. Most shows now don't even last 5-6 seasons. Most shows only have like 6 to 10 episodes nowadays. Not that very long. Cobra Kai is ending season 6. Vikings Valhalla on Netflix is ending on season 3. Like, what? Season 3, it only got 3 seasons. New season's coming out in like 2 weeks, but it's like, that's it? 3 seasons? The original Viking show on History Channel had like 8-9 seasons, So, most shows don't even last this long. But, yeah, we don't know. But, yeah, going back to killing off Carl, it just never made any sense. He sacrificed himself to save another character who then died a season and a half later. And he was like, okay, what was the point of that? What was the point of sacrificing a main character for another character who didn't even live that long? You'd kind of think sacrificing a main character for another under B-level character, if you will, would kind of grant them safety through the remainder of the show. Like, hey, we just sacrificed a main character for like a B-level character. That's a pretty big deal. He should be safe. No, he died like a season later. So I was like, what did he live for? A little love triangle with Rosita and Father G? Like, it just didn't. It just didn't make any sense at all. That's like Rick sacrificing himself for one of the characters in Alexandria, who just kind of, is in the background during like meetings and stuff, and just like nodding his head and maybe says like one or two words like, "That's a great idea. We should do that." And then that character dies. It's like, well, why did we just lose Rick for this character who just died? I don't know. It never made any sense to me at all. And then replacing one son with another son, like, hey, Rick, you're gonna, lose your son, but don't worry, we're gonna give you another son. So we're just replacing one son with another one. Nothing against RJ. RJ's fine and stuff, but it's like, why are we replacing one son with another one? Couldn't Rick have two sons? I don't know. None of it made really any sense. I think it was just a terrible decision. Plus, I think, didn't they do him dirty too? Like, didn't they just like renew his contract or something like that, I thought? But yeah, I think they did him dirty. I think they also did Andrea dirty too. Setting aside, like her character and the bad writing she got and stuff, but I believe the actress herself just bought a house down in Atlanta and moved down there to be closer to film, because I'm pretty sure she assumed, well, according to the comics, all right, I do this, this is what happens. Okay, so I still got, like a lot of story to go through, only to be like, so we're going to kill you off in 4 episodes. Wait, what? Like, I just bought a house. I just moved down here. Couldn't you have told me this or sooner? That's like you moving across the country for your job, buying a house, moving in, and then like a month later being like, so we're going to lay you off. Sorry. Like, you couldn't have like told me this before I bought a house and moved across the country for this job? Like, just saying. So yeah, I mean, I think they did, Carl and I guess Andrea both pretty dirty, but yeah, killing him off, bad idea. I still would have loved to have seen like the future of The Walking Dead with like all the kids. I mean, I guess you can still kind of do it. You got Judith and RJ. Judith is kind of like taking on like Judith and Carl's role at this point, but still, it would have been cool, just imagine like Carl being like a Rick 2.0, leading a new show and stuff like that. Plus, I think it would have been a very cool show, because now you actually have your group of survivors is basically your family. While yes, the core group in season 1, they were like family, but they weren't family. You know what I mean? Like, yes, Rick has said to Daryl, hey, you're my brother and stuff like that, but not his brother, his blood brother. So just imagine that show there, and what if something happened to like Judith or something like that? Now Carl has lost his actual sister, his blood sister, or something like that, or vice versa. That would have been a very interesting dynamic to the show, because now you're losing an actual family member. I don't know, would have been cool to see, but that's just me. Alright, enough talking from me. Wow, 9.5 minutes of me just rambling. Alright, let's just jump into this video. Here we go.
Carl.
Grimes was a character in The Walking Dead that seemed untouchable. The Walking Dead followed the story of the Grimes family, starting with Rick waking from the hospital and doing everything he could to
man looking for his wife and son.
As the years passed by and we started seeing Carl as an actual character instead of a kid growing up in the apocalypse, Chandler Riggs really started coming into his own as both an actor and as Carl Grimes. It seemed inevitable that Rick would someday pass the torch to Carl.
Really need
as
a
the
haircut,
show's
though.
leading man, whether that be by Rick's death or just a switch in perspective. Carl was set up not only to survive in this apocalyptic world, but become a leader in it, much like his father was. Whatever challenges he had to overcome as a child growing up in the apocalypse would only make him a stronger man and leader. This sounds very familiar to a version of Carl Grimes we got, the comic version, that is, but very different from the show version of Carl, whose time was cut far, far too short. In this video, I'm going to go over the version of Carl we got in the show from beginning to end, the reasons why I think Carl's death was a mistake, and where I think Carl would be if he was still in the show today.
Probably a Commonwealth.
In Season 1, Carl is basically in the same boat as Carol when it comes to screen time, meaning they both got very little. Chandler Riggs was the same age as I was when I was watching when he started filming the show, so there were a lot of rules about screen time and hours you're able to work when you're underage, so in Season 1, he's little more than a plot device to cause more tension between Rick and Shane. Carl continues this role in Season 2, but he also gets a fair bit of scenes on his own. Mostly because Lori is an incredibly irresponsible mother and lets her son roam wherever during the zombie apocalypse. I mean, you'd think that she'd be taking better care of him after he was literally shot, but every parenting style is different, I suppose. Lori gets a lot of hate, and some of it is warranted for sure, but Rick is also his father, and he wasn't really watching him either. Granted, Rick had a bit more on his plate than Lori did, but I think Rick still deserves a bit of blame when it comes to
had to deal with Shane
Carl,
and basically leading the entire group.
But more on that later. Carl is curious about the world, as every kid is at his age, but Carl's not growing up in our world.
Exactly.
There's far more dangers to be aware of, but Carl's a naive kid. He wants to go and explore the woods, and while he knows that there's dangers, he's just a kid and he just wants to explore. This doesn't stop Rick and Shane to try and help Carl adapt to this new world. Shane...
That was actually probably a very nice moment, right there. You got, before everything, basically went to shit, with Rick and Shane, you got Carl looking at the deer and stuff like that, and look at both Rick and Shane both smiling and be like,
that there's dangers. He's just a kid.
Look at even Shane smile and being like,
this doesn't stop Rick and Shane to try and help Carl adapt to this new world. Shane likes to take the fatherly approach to Carl for a lot of different reasons, but Carl always remembers Shane's training. He even uses his training in order to kill Shane when he's turned into a walker, which was a pivotal moment for both the show and the development of Carl. Ever since Carl shot Shane, a switch clicked on in his brain. He realized how terrible and unforgiving the world is. We see this time and time again, and in Season 3, Carl is not your ordinary kid anymore. He's already being hardened by the world around him and the things he has to go through. He watched his mother die, had to kill a man that he looked up to, and witnessed the events unfold around the prison, like Herschel getting his leg cut off. Of course, this doesn't help when Carl's main role model is Rick, who is a loving father, but is also the leader of a large group. So Rick has to make some of the tough decisions that others can't. Because Rick is Carl's main role model, Carl really can't tell right from wrong at this point in the show. A kid is surrendering his gun and begging for his life. Well, according to Rick, the people they're facing are the bad guys, so Carl kills this unarmed kid, thinking that it's the right thing to do. Herschel witnesses this, knowing that Carl is heading down a very dark path, because it's the same path that his father's on as well. Herschel then chooses to mentor Rick, which will in effect trickle down to Carl, and it does, until the world proves to be unforgiving once again, leaving the prison in ashes, Herschel a dead man, and Rick and Carl on the run. This is where we really start to see Carl become his own character. Rick is severely injured, and it's up to Carl to find supplies and food all on his own. This episode really felt like a glimpse into the future of the show. A future where Rick is no longer around, and it's up to Carl to provide for himself and the community as a whole. Though Carl still is a kid, so when he sees a giant tub of pudding, he's gonna sit on the roof and eat that pudding. Luckily for Carl, Rick isn't gone, and now Michonne has joined back with them. And Carl gets to see some sense of family once again. This doesn't last for long, as the group is cornered by the Claimers. If it weren't for Rick, terrible things would have happened to Carl, but he witnesses his father take revenge. This revenge that he witnesses changes Carl yet again, seeing his father kill a man in such a brutal manner, but also how far gone this world has become. There are
Because look at that. I mean, that dude dropped a knife and Rick killed an unarmed man. I mean, yes, he was a bad guy. Still unarmed. So you can see how that reacts to, to Carl. Like, well, I killed an unarmed man. Why did I get yelled at? He was a bad guy, too. I see what you do.
Doesn't seem to stretch that far after the Claimers, as they are all captured and almost killed in Terminus, an event that hardens everyone, Carl especially. When the group arrives at Alexandria, we get to see how different Carl is from the kids who have grown up there. Carl calls everyone there weak, and he's right. But his time at Alexandria also allows Carl to live life as a semi-normal teenager. He gets to have his first girlfriend and schoolyard bully, who eventually takes an eye from him, but this doesn't break Carl. When the group runs into Negan, Carl has seen and been through so much to be scared. Part of this is a bit of naivety because obviously Rick is scared to death.
Yes, the future serial killer.
His father act with aggression.
Don't make me kill the future
Never
serial
has he seen
killer.
His father been shaken and scared. This is truly where Carl and Rick start branching paths. Rick bows down to Negan, hoping to spare everyone else.
And Carl doesn't.
Carl has grown up knowing nothing but retribution for the fallen, so he takes matters into his own hands.
Fuck you guys, I'll kill you all.
Negan sees that Carl won't be broken, but he also sees a kid who's been hardened by the apocalypse. Sure, Negan intimidates Carl, but he also respects him. Because of this respect, Carl is able to see Negan
And that's another thing. Can you just imagine the Negan and Carl dynamic we would have had now, like he has with Judith? That, another thing we missed out on. I think that would have been very cool to see Carl and Negan after all that time and stuff like that,
a different light than Rick and the rest of the group. Carl understands and matures so much in seasons 7 and 8 that no one else really does. He can see things from both sides. He can see more than just black and white like Rick and Negan. And because of this, Carl starts envisioning a future for the world, a future of peace among all communities. Carl takes this peaceful mindset with him on his journey in Season 8, choosing to help Siddiq rather than kill him, which is a far cry from the boy who killed someone in Season 3. Ultimately, this outlook is what leads to Carl's downfall, but not before he has a lasting effect on both Rick and Negan. People can be upset about Rick sparing Negan all they want, but if they look at it from Carl's perspective, it makes all the sense in the world that Rick wouldn't kill Negan. Now, something I think all fans can agree on is that Carl's death was a grave mistake made by the showrunners. I know I heard rumors about him being fired from the show, but I don't know, and I don't really care to look into that, because if he was fired, then that's just going to piss me off even more. Everyone knows that Carl's death was a mistake in the story. Carl doesn't die in the comics, and I'd really love to see a world where they never killed Carl off. I have to imagine that Carl's death was one of the reasons that Andrew Lincoln stepped away as Rick. Of course, there's no proof of that anywhere, but I'm almost positive it was one of the reasons why he decided to leave the show.
Kinda interesting that it happened shortly after, the announcement was kinda shortly after this happened. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not.
I wonder if in this hypothetical world where Carl was never killed off, if Andrew Lincoln decided to stay on the show so that way he could eventually pass the torch to Carl as the leader. We'll of course never know the answer, but if Andrew Lincoln was destined to leave the show in Season 9, then killing Carl in Season 8 was the absolute wrong decision. Chandler Riggs' Carl could have absolutely...
Yeah, thinking about it now, it probably was the reason that Rick did leave. Because, if Rick was originally going to leave, why not just pass it off to Carl? Like, here you go. This is yours now.
Absolutely led the show with Rick absent. Would it have been different? Yes.
Carl and
Would we
Daryl?
have missed Rick? Yes, of course we would. But the show wouldn't have felt nearly as empty as it did.
We still have a Grimes.
Still around. We could have had Carl as this young leader with people like Daryl.
Something like Fear the Walking Dead kind of did right. They didn't get rid of all the Clark family. There was always a Clark on the show. Yes, Nick died. Madison died. But we had Alicia. And then when Alicia left or whatever, then we had Madison. So there was always a Clark on the show. We didn't really always have a Grimes on the show. I guess, yes, Judith Grimes, if you will, but still, she was a very small child, so not the same.
Earl and Maggie and Negan to coach him through how to be a leader like his father was. Sure, we have Judith, and she's a great character, and the actress who plays her does a great job, but it's not the same, and it never could be. We got Henry to replace Carl's comic storyline, which I thought was handled pretty well, but I also couldn't help but wonder how this storyline would have played out if Carl was in Henry's shoes. There's just so much missed opportunity and wasted potential that I always come back and wonder what the
Carl
show
dealing
would
with the
have been
Whisperers?
like if Carl was in charge. If Carl was still in the show today, then I think of course he would be the show's leading role. If not leading, then he would just be a step below Daryl. Carl could view the Commonwealth exactly the same as Rick viewed Alexandria when they first arrived, and this would be a great callback to his father and those moments in the series. With Carl's vision for the future, he would be able to see what that looked like and how well it was going, only for there to be bumps in the road with the Whisperers and now the Commonwealth. But Carl would be older and more mature to becoming a leader in his own right. He could have differed from his comic storyline and become a new moral compass for the show, killing only when he saw necessary and doing what's best for his people. I thought that Lydia was a very captivating character in seasons 9 and 10, but in season 11 she's had very little to do. But if Carl was around and their romance was still going on, she'd have a lot more screen time and time to develop more of her own character. Plus, I can totally see Carl and Lydia being a couple that the audiences want to see more of. In the Commonwealth, Sebastian would be a great foil to Carl in the same way Ron was at Alexandria. But Carl wouldn't put up with nearly as much shit now as he did back then. As much as I love The Walking Dead and how great I think season 11 has been in particular, there's still a Grimes-shaped hole in the show that Judith can't fulfill for a multitude of reasons, and with Rick being gone for as long as he's been gone, there's just always felt like there was something missing, and that something missing is Carl Grimes. What are your thoughts on Carl? When I was watching the show, I never really cared too much for Carl until he was gone. Kinda, you don't know what you have until it's gone type of character. But now he's a character that almost constantly crosses my mind. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more Walking Dead content. If you do, then I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, so there we go. There's the video, very much spot on. You know, what was it? You never know what you have until it's gone. You know, oh, Carl sucks, Carl's terrible, and now Carl's dead, and it's like, oh man, you know, I wish Carl was here, because then, you know, we could have had all these different storylines and stuff like that. You know, I always never had a problem with Carl. You know, I thought Carl was fine, you know, but that's just me. But yeah, so much wasted potential, you know. That's the one thing, at least Fear the Walking Dead did right. There was always a Clark on that show. The Walking Dead should have always had a Grimes on the show. Even if Rick was going to leave, Carl should have been alive to be there, to at least have the Grimes presence, if you will. You know, and then hearing about all these things like, oh man, well, you know, him and Lydia and stuff. Who knows? Yeah, Lydia, that would have been, you know, continue, like I was saying, continue the future of The Walking Dead. Carl, Lydia, Judith, RJ, Gracie, and all them. There's a pretty solid group right there. I mean, you know, you got Carl with a missing eye, Lydia with a missing hand. I mean, you know, hey, you know, and then just to see how, you know, him and Negan would have interacted with each other after all that time he spent in the jail and stuff like that, and then seeing like people starting to trust him again, and then who knows, maybe Carl would have been, you know, the voice to, you know, like, hey, you know, he Negan's different, you know, I can, you know, forgive him or something like that, you know, if I can do it, you know, you can do it and stuff like that, you know. Yeah, it just would have been interesting, because even though, you know, Carol let him out and he went and killed Alpha and stuff like that, you know, Negan was still, you know, still on the outside. You know, who knows, maybe Carl would have been, you know, the voice, like, hey, he could have left, He could have just said, "Screw this," Yeah, I'll go handle Alpha. Yeah, no problem. Fuck off. Adios. Good luck to you. But he didn't. He stayed. He did his task. He killed Alpha, and saved us from the Whisperers. I can forgive him. I'm not gonna forget what he did, but I forgive him. I think he's kind of somewhat redeemed himself. But we'll never know. They thought it was a good idea to kill him off, so now we're just stuck with all these what if moments, All right, well, that's enough rambling from me. Let me know what you guys think. Would you have liked Carl to survive? Do you think he was better dead? If he survived, what would you have liked to have seen him do? Step up, be the leader, run a new show? Who would you have liked to have seen him interact with? Yeah, just let me know. So anyways, other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media. Links in the description box below. And yeah, other than that, just stick around. More videos are on the way. And I will see you guys next time.